Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge Day number 2. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and a big good morning, afternoon, or evening, even midnight in India, to everyone joining me live here on Behance this morning. If you are tuning in live, throw your name in the chat, let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from, and if you've never used Adobe XD before, definitely let me know as well. Hopefully you're picking up on some fun tips and tricks and getting some inspiration for these daily creative challenges. They're a lot of fun. But a big hello to Anna and Kroll, Michael Crabtree, one of our awesome previous Adobe XD, Adobe Live guests. And we've got Alberto and Shreya and Tim and Jack and Majid and Magali. If I mispronounce anyone's name, I do apologize. Kevin's in the house. And Eduardo, awesome. All right, so what do we have planned for today? Let me hop over to my desktop. Here we go. And here's the Daily Creative Challenge landing page. You head over to behance.net/challenge/XD. And this is where you're gonna find all the information about our lovely challenges. Hey, Mark, welcome. Ariana and Rachel and Munir from Turkey, Cheryl. Great to see everyone. Familiar faces, new faces, everyone, all of your magical faces. All right, so here's the landing page. If you haven't pressed that big blue register button at the top yet, press the big blue register button at the top. The mic is different. Oh no, I have two mics on. That's not nice. I wonder why I have two mics on. Let me see. Why do I have two mics on? That's not very fun. Hold on, give me 1 second. Maybe if I do that and then push this live, maybe that will fix the problem. I hope that will fix the problem. That probably will fix the problem. So let me know in about 30 seconds, you're gonna get the update. And I'm trapped in a bubble. That's not very fun. But I re-added the video source yesterday when I was changing some things. So hopefully, and I didn't mute that video source. So hopefully, yes, I fixed it. Aha. See, this is why Chad is here, to correct me on all my wrongdoings. Thank you, Chad. I appreciate you. All right, put some auto-tune. I should put some auto-tune on here. All right, so back to what we were doing. Little technical difficulty, but I know I'm trapped inside an aluminum box. Adobe doesn't let me out. I'm just in this little green screen box all day. So here's the landing page. So every single day you're gonna receive a challenge. And those are released somewhere around 8 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time. And then you can join us on our community chat. And that is powered by Discord, and we have almost 20,000 of you magical people in Discord. It's insane, and you're all friendly, except maybe 1 or 2 of you, but all of you are friendly. So Sam's been posting the daily challenges every single morning. Chat doing my job. Yes, Chat is doing Paco's job. Thank you, Chat. So here's Discord, and Tim did post a link in chat. If you haven't joined the 20,000 people, definitely hop in there. We've got the Creative Challenge section, we've got a welcome section, what's new in XD, pro tips, the current challenge section, so you can post all of your amazing work that you've been doing over the last day or two and over the next 2 weeks. You can definitely, keep posting your work, getting feedback. And I've been seeing a lot of good feedback and, people experimenting with tips and tricks in Adobe XD to try to push it to its bounds, which is really fun. If you have questions or you want to share tips and tricks, introduce yourself, there's a lot of cool people from all over the world, from Delhi, India, and who else do we have in here? Another person from India, San Jose or San Diego, Austria, who's living now in Seattle. This is really cool. People from all over the place. So definitely hop into Discord, introduce yourself, and have a good time. So before we jump into today's challenge, which is to design a leaderboard experience, I want to take a very quick look at a few of them that came in over the last 24 hours or so. This one, I don't have a name. I forgot to write down the name for this one, but I found these inside of the current challenge channel within our Discord channel. And it's this one's very simple, and I like this one because it doesn't focus too much on the color. The one that I designed yesterday, there was a lot of color, right? But in a situation where you're giving a presentation, you might not want that much color. You might want something almost monochromatic. So this user, I forget who it is, but very simple. You can add a name here, Netflix time. I love Netflix time. I need to catch up on a lot of Netflix shows, but yeah, very simple, but also very effective, which is really nice. This one over here is from Dan, and he put together this, it's just a single image but he kind of grabbed some of the assets from Adobe Live and put together a live stream presentation timer, which I thought was really cool. I would love to see, Dan, if you're watching, I would love to see this kind of expanded and show some interaction, some animation, what some of these other tabs might do if you click on them, and just really go crazy with it. Because that's one of the cool things about this challenge is you can start off very basic, but as you start to build out your portfolio and a case study, you can really start to expand on what these interactions might do. This one is, I forgot to write down a name again, but you can also upload to Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge, and I'll be able to find it there. That way I'll have your name. So this one here, interesting color choice. I don't hate it. It's not bad, but there's some nice animations going on there, some masking, and you can add some new time. I believe that was done possibly using an overlay, possibly, maybe not. Nice stuff. And then finally, we have Jack, who I believe is in the chat, and Jack has been putting out some amazing work over the last few weeks with the daily challenges, and he kind of has this hourglass looking effect for the challenge. And let me go ahead and play this video. Let me expand it so we can see the whole thing, and I'm gonna play it here. And that's just crazy. Jack, cool stuff. Swipe to delete, you can refresh, you can add something new at the bottom. There's Jack. Hey Jack, welcome. Oh, look at that. Look at the timer is even going down. Jack is just next level. What? I don't have any words for this. Jack, this is cool stuff. So let's hop into today's challenge, which is the leaderboard experience. So I'm gonna hop over to Adobe XD right over here. And here's the template for today. Even though it does say day 1 at the top, I'm actually gonna fix that. It's day 2, I fixed it. See, I'm fixing everything in this stream. So here we go. We've got day 2 going on. We've got some inspiration down at the bottom here, but we're just gonna jump into it. And again, the prompt is to design a leaderboard and point tracking experience for a neighborhood cleanup app. Try using UI faces. I'm gonna show you that in a minute, how to use UI faces to add some magical faces into your experience. So I'm gonna grab my Artboard tool and simply click. And that's going to add the last artboard I created, which was an iPhone 10 or 10s. And the reason I'm using that is because somewhere around here I do have an iPhone 10, so it's a little bit easier for me to preview these. But if you have an Android device or if you have any other iPhone, you can definitely, create some of your own. You've got Apple over here. If you scroll down, we've got some Google Mobile, tablet, and even Android Wear, which is really fun. All right, so here we go. We're going to start designing this experience, and if you know me, you know I like gradients. So I'm going to click on the artboard, and I'm going to green screen is coming off. Oh no, look at that. I've got a little cropping issue going on. Well, you know what? Let me see if I can very quickly fix it. Just because this is like the day of fixing things, right? Boop. Aha, that fixed it. All right, so you should all see that fix in about 30 seconds. Thank you again, chat. All right, so we've got our artboard, and I want a little bit of a gradient going on in the background. So I'm gonna click on my fill, and I'm going to set my linear gradient, just like I did yesterday. I'm gonna add a lovely a diagonal gradient. And maybe this time we'll have a nice red color, maybe a little bit of pink introduced here. There we go. Fixing stuff with Howard's stream, indeed. Maybe add a little bit of pink, and maybe on this one up here, it's gonna be a little bit more red, just like that. Ooh, look at that gradient, that's fancy. Isn't that a nice gradient? That's a great, I might wanna use this somewhere else. So I'm gonna hop into my assets panel and simply press on the plus button beside color. And it's gonna add that gradient directly to my assets panel. So if I did need to change it across multiple artboards at the same time, I just have to edit it once and I'm good to go. All right, so now we want a few things. We want, at the top, we want some text, right? So I'm gonna type out leaderboard. Now, this color text probably not gonna work, so I'm going to select the fill and just change it to white. I'm kind of happy with pop-ins and bold and 36, so I'm just gonna leave it right about there. Now at the top here, we might want to highlight the top 3 people who have been picking up a lot of trash, right? So I'm gonna grab my ellipse tool and simply draw out, this will be the number 1 person, right? And I'll turn on, I'll keep the border on, but I'm going to drop the opacity just a little bit, make sure it's on the outside, and I can do that by pressing on this right here. And if I increase it, you're gonna notice we have a little bit of a border going on the outside of that shape, just to give it a little bit of flair. So that'll be number 1, and then right below it, we might want to type out the person's name. It's a little bit too large, so I'm going to just drop it down like that. Perfect. And then we might also want to highlight how many pieces of trash they've picked up. So in this case, let's say 42 pieces. I probably don't want that bold. Let's go for medium, and I'll drop this down even more. Let's say to 12, and maybe drop the opacity just a touch. All right. So we've got this first piece in place, right? Now for this one, we're not going to use a repeat grid. We will use a repeat grid for the next set of people. But for this one, I'm going to grab this element, I'm going to group it, and this will be, I'll just type out, I guess I should type out person, right? And I'm going to duplicate this one over here and maybe make it a touch smaller, just a little bit smaller. Because this is the second place person. Maybe I'll put it right about here. And I'll duplicate this one over. And you're noticing those smart guides and smart padding are kind of letting me know where things are. And maybe I'll move it down just a touch. And maybe this one will be a little touch smaller. Then I can just jump in here, make sure everything's lined up really nicely, and everything looks great. All right, so now we have our top 3 people. We've got our first place, our second place, and our third place. We need some photos, right? So I'm gonna hop into Finder, and I do have an image or a folder with a bunch of photos. So I'm gonna just grab some of these. I'll grab this one, drag it in here, right? I'll grab this one, boop, there we go. And maybe this one right over here. Perfect. So now we've got some photos in there. We need some names. I'm gonna grab some names from the chat. We've got Eric over here. This is now you, Eric. Thank you for picking up 42 pieces of trash. And we've got, let's say this is Julia. And maybe we also need another female in here. I did see Marissa at some point, so this will be Marissa. Perfect. All right, now this is second place, so this will be maybe 39 pieces. And this will be 30. Perfect. All right, so we now have our initial leaderboard experience looking pretty good. Now we need everyone from place 4 all the way down, and we're going to do that using a repeat grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into my my tools bar, grab my rectangle tool, and simply draw one out across my artboard just like that. Perfect. Now I'm going to turn off the border. Now there's a few things that we want inside. We want an image of the person, we want the name, and maybe how many pieces they've also picked up. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, and a lot of this is, very familiar. We've been doing this since the beginning. I'll do that. Make sure it's very scrappy. This will be name. Whoop. Make it a little bit darker. Make sure it's left justified. Pop it right about here. Let's go for 8 pixels. Perfect. And then over here to the side, we want how many pieces they picked up. So let's say this is 24. Make sure to right justify it and then pop it right about here. Let's also go for 16 pixels from the right. Perfect. Now, one more thing we might also want is their activity on the leaderboard, whether they have gone up or down in the rankings. So to do that, I'm going to simply make a lovely arrow, like a caret going up and down, right? I'm going to turn on my grid. So I'm going to hold down Command or Control and press the little apostrophe. Boop. There we go. And that will allow me to see my grid. And now I can grab my pen tool and simply draw out a nice little caret or arrow, just like that. Maybe I'll round out the caps a little bit and change this one to green, just like that. Maybe I'll make it size of 2. Turn off my grid. Now that's definitely a little bit too large. So what I want to do is make sure that it's a little bit smaller. There we go. Maybe I'll pull this out just a touch. Perfect. All right, and things are lining up really nicely. Now, I also wanted one at the bottom. So I'm going to just drop down here. I'm going to flip it. We have the flip, the vertical flip button over here. I'm going to press that. And this one is going to be red. Now this one for the most part is not going to be seen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this one by default. However, we want to make sure to turn this into a component, because once we're putting this into a repeat grid, if we don't have it as a component, we're not going to be able to override it. So I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to simply turn them into a component, Command or Control K. And for this one, we want the opacity set to 0. Perfect. All right, so now that we have our initial, let me change this to just a darker color just so we can see it. All right, so now that we have our initial card set up, I'm gonna make sure to select all the elements within this card, and I want to turn this into a repeat grid. So I'm going to do that by pressing the repeat grid button over to the right, or I can Command and Control R, just like that. And now I can just pull this down my artboard. Bam. I can also adjust the spacing if I wanted to, and leave it somewhere right about there. Now, of course, we need some names, we need some images. Now there's a few ways you can add some images directly into a repeat grid. We can hop back over to Finder, grab all these people, drag them directly onto the repeat grid, and it's automatically gonna flow in, right? But there's a few other ways. We can use a plugin. And one of my favorite plugins, if I hop over here to the plugins panel down at the bottom, is called UI Faces. This one right here. I'm gonna press on that, and it's gonna tell me that I have to select an item. So I'm gonna hop into my repeat grid, make sure to select the ellipse that's part of the grid, and now I can choose a lot of different options. Where do I want the images to come from? And one of the new, this is super cool, one of the new sources they just added is this person does not exist. I believe the website is thispersondoesnotexist.com, and he uses this NVIDIA AI to create people that do not exist, which is weird. It's crazy. We live in a simulation, maybe. But you know, I'm gonna choose that, and it's gonna basically generate these random people that do not exist. So if you're worried about copyright issues, use this option and no one can sue you because these people aren't real. So I'm gonna choose that. You can choose what age range. I'm gonna keep it blank right now. Gender, male or female. If it's blank, it chooses both, which is great. Emotion, let's go for happiness. I'm not sure if happiness works with this person does not exist, but we're gonna try it. Hair color, I'm not too worried about, and there's some advanced features, and all I have to do now is press apply. And it's basically gonna grab some images from thispersondoesnotexist.com and populate my grid. And again, these people are not real. These are not real people. These are computer AI generated people, so you don't have to worry about copyright issues. It's kind of creepy, but it's also kind of cool. And now what we can do is we can go through and add some names, or another thing we can do is there's a website that I was just made aware of called repeatgrid.com. Pretty fancy. And this will allow you to download sample text files for your repeat grid. So you can download a text file with first names, full names, emails, URLs, and these are all fictitious. They're not actual people as well. And what I did was I downloaded right over here a few text files from first names, full names, usernames. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply just drag this first names text file into any one of these repeat grids, and it's going to automatically pop those in there. Now, of course, this is probably not Grant, but of course, you know, we can just jump in here and I can name this. This will be Julia again, Jessica, Carrie, Natasha, and maybe this will be Grant down here. So we can very easily make those changes, right? So our repeat grid is looking pretty good. But of course, you know, all these people, we have the up arrow kind of going up for everyone, but maybe some of them have dropped in the rankings. So because we used a component for these green and red arrows, what we can do is we can just jump in here, and let me go back to my layers panel so you can see what we're working with. I can double click. So maybe this one here is, they did not go up in the rankings, but they actually went down. So I'm gonna just drop the opacity of the green one, increase the opacity of the red one, and because we're using components, it does not push to all the other repeat grids, which is super cool. Because as you might know, on a repeat grid, if you were to edit the position or the style of any of the elements that are not components, it pushes it to everything to keep the repeat grid up to date and looking fancy. But if you use components for things like icons or arrows and things like that, you can get around that by overriding the component, which is really cool. Fake personas, but possibly real people from the world we exist in. Yes. All right, so we've got our repeat grid looking good. We might want to add a few additional entries. We might want to add a navigation bar at the bottom. So let's go ahead and quickly do that. I'm gonna grab my rectangle and simply draw out a navigation bar right down here at the bottom. I'm gonna turn off the border. And now we need some icons. And there's a lot of different icon plugins. So if I hop back here, there's icon drop, and there's also another new one that came out recently. If I press the plus button, there is, which is that one that came out recently? I forgot to download it on this computer. Just type out icons. icons and symbols. So you can get a bunch of icons there, and even something like icon drop, even though they have premium icons, you can also filter by free icons. But I do have the Nucleo application that I have all my icons in. So I'm going to just type out a few icons that I need. Let's say a home icon. I'll pop that in here. I might also need a bell icon for notifications. That looks good. I might need a profile, right? Or a user. That one looks fancy. And then I need an active icon, which will be trophies for the navigation or for the leaderboard experience. Trophy. That one looks good right there. All right. So I might want the profile icon over to the right, the home icon over here, maybe the bell icon this side, and the trophy icon somewhere over here. They might need to be a little bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of them. Whoops. Whoops. There we go. And in my assets panel, I want to make sure that all of them, or in my properties, all of them are about 32 by 32. That's a little bit large. So maybe I'll just drop it a little bit to, let's say, 28. That looks a little bit better. I'm going to make sure at the top I can also distribute them, make sure they all line up properly. Perfect. And I'll just pop them in place right about here. I do want to leave a little bit of room at the bottom for the home indicator. And just to really tell that, you know, this one here is the active page that we're on, I'm simply going to sample one of these colors just like that. And maybe I'll grab these icons and just drop the opacity just a little bit, not too much. That'll just let us know that we are on the trophies page. All right, so we've got our navigation bar. I want to make sure to hop into my layers panel, group all this stuff just to keep everything up to date and looking fancy. And this will be called navbar. Now, the final thing I want to show you is what if we wanted to make some changes to this leaderboard, maybe add some additional entries, make this artboard a little bit scrollable, right? So there's a few things we can do. The first thing is we can adjust the repeat grid and just pull this down to have additional entries. And then from there, we can also hop back into the UI Faces plugin, just like this. Where's UI Faces? And let's generate this one more time. So we have additional faces going down the repeat grid. And it's working. Go, go, go. There we go. So now we have some additional people that simply do not exist. But of course, if we were to play this prototype, we can't scroll, right? So there's a few things we have to do first. One, we have to select the artboard and then actually drag it down so we can actually see. I'm going to leave a little bit of room for the navigation bar at the bottom. However, even after we've done that, when we press play and we scroll, everything scrolls nicely, but that navigation bar is kind of floating in space, which we definitely don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the navigation bar, and within prototype mode, I want to make sure to press fix position when scrolling. Boop, there we go. And that will basically pin it to that artboard. So now when I press play, I'm going to scroll down and the navigation bar stays nicely in place. So Justin's asking, is it me or is it spacing off a little bit between the top circles? Let's see. Let us find out. What I'm going to do is I can go into design mode, select all of these and make sure that they're distributed. Oh, you might have been right. They may have been off. And they are off a little bit vertically. I did that on purpose to kind of give a little bit of hierarchy. First place, second place, third place. All right, and finally, just to kind of wrap things up, just to show you that changes can be made to repeat grids at any time. So what I might want to do is maybe I'll want this full width, right? Or maybe just a little bit larger. So I'll move this over and I'm going to drag this out, right? Just like this. Grab this, move it over a little bit, grab these, move those. And again, everything kind of stays really nicely in place. So I don't have to worry about syncing everything and redoing everything over and over again. I can increase this or decrease this. And now we have a much larger repeat grid going on. And maybe for the navigation bar at the bottom, just to kind of separate it from that repeat grid in the background, maybe I'll add a very subtle shadow. I don't want to go too crazy with the shadows, because then if you go like too harsh, then it looks just ridiculous like that. You probably don't want that. That's ugly. So I'm going to go very subtle, like 5% for the opacity of the shadow. And when I press play, there's a little bit of separation from the background, and now we have our leaderboard with our top winners at the top. And of course, I can go through and make changes to the pieces over here. But that will just about wrap it up for today. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for all the suggestions and also letting me know what was wrong with my stream. The audio's been fixed, the green screen has been fixed, everything should be magical and looking great. Stick around in just a few minutes. We have another XD stream, a case study with Colby, I believe it is. So stick around for that. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning at 11:30 with day 3 of the XD Daily Creative Challenge, and I will see you all next time.